Hi, welcome to Box on the Box Rock and Celluloid Bot for short. I'm with Box. So I was watching an interesting feature on the Contrarians channel the other day where they discussed bands that completed a 1-2 punch, i.e. their debut album and their follow-up album were both excellent. One might be better than the other, but generally speaking, it was a good job well done. So I got to thinking about that. I thought, I'll have a go at that and give you some of my choices. Obvious one is Van Halen 1 and Van Halen 2. Van Halen 1's an album that needs no introduction. It's one of the greatest debuts, maybe the greatest hard rock debut of all time. Van Halen 2's a really good follow-up. A lot of people, some prefer it, but it's kind of like a sunnier version of things, and it works really well. It's not an easy job following up Van Halen 1, so I think Van Halen 2 did a great job. Next one is Iron Maiden. The debut's an absolute classic, really important album in the development of metal, a new album. Then they do Killers, which for many is the definitive Iron Maiden album, but some people prefer the first. Either way, brilliant job by Maiden doing that. Both with great covers as well, Then I'm going to pick Heart as well, Dreamboat Annie, absolutely classic debut, followed up by Little Queen. I don't think Little Queen's quite as good, but it's got Barracuda on it, Love Alive, Dream of the Archer. It's got areas where it develops the sound, and I think that's the other important thing, isn't it? That the band, you hear some progression in the band, even if you're not totally into it as much. So two great albums there. Then I got one which is Rat, obviously cheating slightly because they've got the Rat EP, which is like a 6-track mini album, but really Out of the Cellar's a proper debut, and they followed up with that with Invasion of Privacy. Out of the Cellar's probably a superior album, but Invasion of Privacy had better production. And it had amazing tracks like Lay It Down, Great Open, like You're in Love. So the band, maybe it wasn't as consistent, but it was still really solid. It had a cool spin on, a variation on the album colour as well, and the whole kind of branding of rap. Ozzy Osbourne, we've got to pick him, Blizzard of Oz, and then into Diary. Again, a lot of people, myself included, prefer Diary. I probably hear those Blizzard tracks too much, but barnstorming debut, and then a really cool follow-up that's suitably different as well. So another great 1-2 there. Then you could add his replacement Sabbath into that, Dio, Holy Diver, and then The Last in Line, a really close run thing. I'd pick Holy Diver, but Last in Line's a great follow-up. Last time I listened to it was, I hadn't enjoyed it more. It was almost that I enjoyed it, it was just getting better. Some people prefer Last in Line. Either way, two great albums, great covers, kind of similar vibe, but with differences. Excellent 1-2 there. And of course, Sabbath itself with their debut album, and then Paranoid, Black Sabbath classic debut album, inventing sort of the heavy metal sound, and Paranoid building on that. You could kind of add into that the first two Dio albums with Sabbath. Obviously they're not debut albums, but it's the debut with Dio, and there's that amazing doubler of Heaven and Hell and Mob Rules, very much two sides of the same coin, similar albums like The Holy Down, Last in Line, but you need them both, and people will fight over which they think's better. Okay, Jimi Hendrix, I experienced Axis Boulder's Love. Axis Boulder's Love can get overlooked in favour of Electric Ladyland, but I prefer it. I like the sort of simpler arrangements, the more pop approach. And I think that Axis Boulder Love builds on I Experience really well. I actually prefer it. I think it might be my favourite Hendrix album. So that was, pretty amazing, both in the same year. He did a double of there, as did Led Zeppelin with their debut coming out right at the start of 1969. And Led Zeppelin 2 at the end, and Led Zeppelin 1 classic debut. Led Zepp 2 probably superseding it, and again building on the sound. And then that brings me to Prog Kansas. Their debut album's really good with many key tracks on it, and then the follow-up song for America, again builds on that, both with cool artwork, both sort of building that cool logo, building the kind of Kansas idea of what they're going to be like. Mask isn't as good, and then they do a kind of another doubler with Leftoverture and Point of No Return, but a really strong debut, really strong follow-up. Get a bit hair metal now. I'm going for Lynch Mob, Wicked Sensation, excellent debut, and followed up by the self-titled album with Robert Mason. Again, both those albums are really good. Most people prefer Wicked Sensation, but I think the Lynch Mob's a really good album, and it's suitably different as well. It's very good. Night Ranger, Dawn Patrol, into Midnight Madness. These albums are reviewed. Again, you take your pick. People will fight it out which they think's better. And again, Midnight Madness is suitably different. It's a little more polished production. It's got Sister Christian. The band's stretching its sound. Really good. Two bands beginning with Q. Queensryche. Again, cheating a bit. You've got the EP, haven't you? But then you've got the Warning. An album which I think's better thought of now than when it came out due to its production issues. A really good debut. And of course going to Rage for Order, which really does kind of, it did fairly kind of shits on the Warning in a lot of ways, certainly production-wise and with amazing lyrics, but it builds on that kind of technology in 1984 themes, I think, of the Warning. So really good 1-2 from Queensryche. And then, of course, Queen 1 and Queen 2. Quite often the two favourite albums of hardcore Queen fans, Queen 2 being the pick there. Queen 1 recently remixed. I suspect they'll do Queen 2, which I think would benefit from it due to the overdubbing and a lot bouncing down, degrading the tape at the time. Some people prefer Sheer Heart Attack or Night at the Opera, but those first two Queen albums, whatever, you got a really storming debut and an excellent follow-up with the iconic image of Queen on the front. Michael Schenker Group, debut on Michael Schenker Group, and then its follow-up MSG. Again, people will find it out which is their favourite. They've both got excellent tracks, and I think the lineup on the MSG album, the second one's better. The first album's probably got a better selection of songs overall, but both really good. Both a year apart. Great days of metal and rock at that time. Producing music like that. Gonna get a little bit sort of idiosyncratic here. But picked Tom Alpine, a guitar instrumentalist I really love. His Edge of Insanity debut is a key album in instrumental shred, production aside, and the songs are really good. His playing's great, and then he just knocks it out of the park with a Maximum Security album. You can really see the growth between them. But I'd always give Edge of Insanity, its due, even though I'm going to go for Maximum Security more often than that. Technically, in a weird way, his second album he does is Mars Project Driver, which isn't a solo album. That comes out before Maximum Security, but I love that as well, so quite interesting. And then you've got hair metal band Soraya. Their debut album's really good, and the follow-up, When the Blackbird Sings, is really good. They didn't do any other albums, so that's a kind of weird one. It's the same for Malice as well. Their In the Beginning album it's a fun debut, you should check it out. And The License to Kill, again, more polished production, building on the positives of In the Beginning, but sort of taking things somewhere. And looking down here, Winger would be another hair metal band. Prefer the debut, but In the Heart of the Young is a strong in a follow-up. It's got plenty of Winger classics, and for some people they prefer that as well. And Sorry to Swear, Ted Nugent, obviously his debut album, solo album, is excellent, and then it followed Free for All. Although being a little schizophrenic because it's got two lead singers, Meatloaf being one of them, it is a really good record. I think it's worth saying it's easier for bands to kind of pull out a really good album out of the hat. They've already been in other things. So obviously Ted Nugent was in the Amboy Dukes. When Black Sabbath got together with Deal, well, they both made amazing albums. Just thinking about it, I mean, Rainbow's a pretty good one too, but Richie Blackmore's Rainbow's quite a notch below Rising in terms of productions and songs. I do like Richie Blackmore's Rainbow, but sort of it's a good debut. It is kind of a classic, but the distance is a little bigger there, as is On Through the Night and High and Dry with Def Leppard. There's a couple of examples where they're good, but they're not as close together. Judas Priest as well. I actually really like Rock and Roller, but it's difficult to sort of say it's an amazing debut. I just like it, And Sad Wings is a massive, massive jump. I think the albums we're talking about here are either a bit of a good jump or maybe a little contraction, but still good. I could say the same for Yngwie Malmsteen. I mean, technically Rising Force is his first album, or is it Alcatraz, Steely, He'd already made a couple of albums, but his first two albums are good. But a little kind of tenuous one. Boston is one that cropped up on the Contrarians, and I don't totally agree with this. The Boston debut album's amazing. It's probably, after Van Halen won, the greatest debut in history, Montrose. But I feel like Don't Look Back, although it's decent, it's quite a notch down for me from the debut. And it doesn't massively expand the sound. But other people would disagree with that. So yeah, I've rattled off about 25 there, so I'm just checking down here, see if there's any more I thought of, and I did not. So there we go, those are my sort of 1-2 punches. What are yours? There's plenty of examples of bands maybe doing a great third and a fourth album, or doing a run of albums, but it's quite hard to come out of the blocks full steam ahead and then keep that momentum. And typically when bands often do 2 great opening albums, it often leads, for them to keep going, so to speak. Okay, remember, share and subscribe. I'll see you again soon. Thanks.